Live from Bloomberg's world headquarters in New York, I'm Scarlett Fu.
And I'm Matt Miller. Welcome to Bloomberg Crypto. A look at the people, transactions, and technology shaping the world of decentralized finance.
And we start with the Trump family. Fortune now stands at $7.7 billion. Crypto helping to fuel this rise as American Bitcoin and World Liberty are seeing strong demand.
One of the key figures that is credited with converting President Trump into a crypto believer is David Bailey. In just a moment, we will speak to him about the president and his family, as well as the rise of digital asset treasuries.
And outside of the Trumps, we will discuss EasyJet getting into the crypto game with the launch of a new app called Easy Bitcoin.
That's all ahead, but first here's a snapshot of the market right now. Bitcoin hovering around the $112,000 mark as the token rallied to all-time highs this summer, at one point at 125 grand after a flood of institutional investments. And we also have a couple of IPOs coming up this week.
Yeah, 2 crypto IPOs coming up this week, starting with Figure Technology, the blockchain-based credit company boosting the potential size of its offering, now looking to offer 31.5 million shares from $20 to $22 a piece. Figure's offering will price tomorrow. Then we've got Gemini Space Station, which is the crypto exchange led by the Winklevoss twins. It has sewn up a $50 million investment from NASDAQ, which is a private placement that is separate from its plan to raise up to $316 million in the public market. Gemini will price its IPO on Thursday, and Matt, it will begin trading Friday.
Let's get now to the Trump's crypto fortunes. Last week, American Bitcoin began trading on the NASDAQ. That's the name of the company, American Bitcoin. Eric Trump spoke about his belief in the token alongside the CEO of Hut 8.
Everybody right now, all around the world, wants the asset, wants Bitcoin. You see it from the largest Fortune 500 companies to, the biggest sovereign wealth funds to, nation states to states here in the United States, right? I mean, Texas, you saw what they just did, and obviously Wyoming, and it's really the hot asset of our time.
We look to be one of the largest. When we started this with Eric and Don Jr., there's a very key focus. Let's build the premier Bitcoin company of the world, and we are aiming, and we will do so.
I believe in Bitcoin. I've been a long-term owner of Bitcoin. I've been buying it for several years at this point, and I see its adoption all over the world, and how much it's being embraced globally. And the floodgates are just starting to open, and so it's kind of perfect time. So,
Bloomberg's Andy Massa reported on this and joins us now to talk about it. So, what do we know about the rise of this family into the top echelon of crypto?
Well, it's really a story about how the Trump's wealth has changed. So people affiliate the Trump business empire with real estate most often, but crypto has become such an important part and so rapidly become a huge part of their wealth. So this story is about how, in really just a matter of weeks, the Trumps have been able to add more than $1 billion to their net worth as a result of crypto projects that are really about a year or less even old. So you're seeing how quickly they've been able to build wealth with the platform that they have, and it's really a striking development.
Okay, so we're talking about World Liberty and American Bitcoin primarily, but they have other things that are kind of in the works as well, which could add to that fortune getting bigger. What are some examples of things that they're working on, like works in progress?
Yeah, I spoke to one investor. So there are a couple things to keep track of here. The 2 pieces that you just mentioned, American Bitcoin is now a publicly traded Bitcoin miner that was spun up this year. And World Liberty Financial, of course, is their crypto platform that was announced last year that does a couple of different things and has an affiliated token. I spoke to one investor who said that the Trumps have mentioned tokenizing real estate assets. So we're really going in all different directions with the business opportunities that they see here.
So in the past, I'm old enough to remember a lot of different presidential cycles. Relatives of the president making money has been seen as a bad thing, right? From Jimmy Carter's brother to Bill Clinton's brother to Joe Biden's son. Does anybody raise eyebrows at the fact that the president's sons are essentially using his influence in the White House to make a fortune?
I mean, I would say there's more than eyebrows being raised. It's it's really something that there's been quite a bit of pushback over, both among Democrats, but also government watchdogs, and but it hasn't slowed down despite all of that in the months since Trump was reelected and then inaugurated.
All right, Bloomberg's Andy Massa, thank you so much. A really good story here to read on the Bloomberg terminal. The Trump family adding $1.3 billion of crypto wealth in a span of weeks. All right, let's bring in David Bailey because he is CEO of BTC. That is the company behind Bitcoin Magazine and the annual Bitcoin Conference, which is a conference where President Trump made his first pro-crypto promises during his campaign back in July 2024. Among his various crypto ventures, David has been advising the Trump administration on crypto policy. So, David, thank you for speaking with us. Let's talk a little bit about the president and his conversion from Bitcoin skeptic to Bitcoin believer, because he credits you for really transforming his stance on Bitcoin and on crypto overall. Was there a specific aha moment that you feel cemented his support, or from where you sit, did it appear to be more of an evolution?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me on. And yes, I think the president's journey into being a Bitcoin believer is really similar to most people's. You start off a skeptic, and as you're exposed to it more, as you get more comfortable with it, as you know people who can explain it to you better, you get excited about what the opportunity is. And the president is a bit of a he's an entrepreneur. I think that's one of the things that has really made him the political force that he is. And he sees potential where other people don't. And so he saw an opportunity for the country. He saw an opportunity for the Republican Party, and he executed on it. And he's done a fantastic job of stewarding crypto policy through the U.S. And I'm extremely thankful for everything that he's done. In terms of a turning point for the president, I think the turning point was really, he actually said this comment to us that, every person that he knows feels like, says that the Bitcoin is the end of the dollar, and he loves the dollar. So, how can he support something that would undermine the US dollar? I think where it really clicked for him is when we made the comparison to gold, and building Fort Knox in the United States and custodying the world's gold. It didn't undermine the power of the US dollar. If anything, it strengthened it. It made it the global currency that it is. And so our case to the president was, we need to build a digital Fort Knox. We need to store the digital gold. And by doing so, we're going to elongate the lifespan of the US dollar and keep relevance for it. So as soon as we were able to kind of reframe the discussion around what are the benefits to the US financial system and monetary system, I think that's really when he got on board.
David, I wonder how your thoughts on Bitcoin and crypto have evolved. I started following this currency when it was worth less than $1,000, and there was a real libertarian, almost, I don't want to say anti-government base, but a base that didn't trust the government and those institutions. At the time, it was thought of as something that you spend. My first few Bitcoins I spent right away at a bar or at a grocery store, buying video games, buying gas. And now it seems to be more a store of wealth. How do you see the original cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I think where it has found product market fit is as digital gold. And so it is all of these things. It is a payments technology. It is a technology platform. But where investor demand has really been driven is as a permissionless, decentralized store of value. It is a bit of it does feel uncomfortable at times, like how integrated Bitcoin is becoming with the establishment system. But I really think that that's a symptom of Bitcoin's success. While maybe the makeup of who is owning Bitcoin, investing in Bitcoin, supporting Bitcoin is changing, the technology itself is the same technology that we've had for 13 years, 15 years. So it's really something that I think is a sign of success and an inevitability of Bitcoin becoming a mainstream asset within the global financial system.
I like what you said about how it's a little uncomfortable seeing how absorbed it is into the mainstream. You've mentioned plans to establish a $100 to $200 million crypto-focused PAC. Is that something that will be in place for the 2026 midterms, or is that more of a 2028 election thing that you're targeting? And I'm curious what specific policies or public objectives the PAC would look to influence.
Yeah, so we're still developing what our strategy is. We want there to be a priority and a focus on what the US's Bitcoin policy is, how we can accommodate more Bitcoin mining in the US, how we can have a better tax policy for it, how we can more deeply integrate it across the basic financial services and products that people need in their everyday life. I think a very creative example of something that the Trump administration has done is that now people who are applying for mortgages can reference the Bitcoin that they hold as an asset that actually a bank will value when underwriting a mortgage. That's something that is actually very impactful to the 50 million Americans that have Bitcoin exposure. So I think there's tons of creative things that can be done to extend the frontier of Bitcoin and its integration into the broader financial system. I think it's wise of the United States to lead that process and set the tone for that. And what happens in the U.S. is ultimately replicated and spread globally from there. So there's a lot that we want to achieve. We haven't announced any plans yet, but I think it's been very eye-opening for our industry what can be accomplished by working collaboratively with the government, and we want to continue that process.
All right, David, we are excited to continue talking to you. You're going to stick with us. David Bailey, somewhat of a legend in the crypto universe. We're going to talk with him about the digital asset treasury companies that he's helping to build as well. Also coming up, a new app from the company behind EasyJet is trying to make Bitcoin even easier and cheaper to access. Would you spend it if you had some? And to access all the latest data and news on crypto, check out CRYP Go on the Bloomberg terminal. This is Bloomberg Crypto.
Wall Street analyst Dan Ives is now chair of a digital asset treasury firm. The Wedbush equities analyst joined 8Co as it announced plans to raise funds for a WorldCoin treasury strategy through Ethereum. You look at shares of 8Co, they jumped more than 5,000% at one point yesterday following the news. Matt?
All right, we are back with David Bailey. He is the CEO of KindlyMD, which agreed in May to combine with Nakamoto Holdings to form a digital asset treasury company. That merger was completed in August. You see, after the initial surge in that stock, it has since given back some gains. But David, I think it's fair to say you're kind of pioneering the space. Obviously, Michael Saylor did a lot as well with strategy, but you've gone a step further, I think, in terms of strategy, your strategy squared strategy. Explain to us why this is maybe better, or why it's a different use case than just buying Bitcoin on its own for an investor.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, this is very relevant to our last discussion that Bitcoin is having a mainstream moment, and mainstream investors want exposure to it. And so fundamentally, the Bitcoin treasury, digital asset treasury play is about packaging Bitcoin in a form that is easy and readily accessible to investors, that are your mainstream typical investors, which means they have a brokerage account. They want to invest into regulated products that they know that are legal, that are tax optimized. So there's a whole set of things that investors are looking for. And fundamentally, we're just making it easy for them to get access to Bitcoin through these vehicles. What we did that's a little bit different than Saylor, we were really the first copycat, I guess you could say, of Michael Saylor's strategy. We started with a company in Japan called Metaplanet that we underwrote. And that experience really showed us that what Michael Saylor was doing was not a Michael Saylor phenomenon. It was a broader capital markets phenomenon. And so since then, we've underwritten 16 treasury companies in 12 different markets around the world. We've had incredible success doing it, and we've realized that each of these markets just has significant amounts of trapped liquidity that wants to get into Bitcoin. So these vehicles just make it easy. They're regulated. They conform to existing securities laws. So it's a very quick and easy process to really integrate the markets with Bitcoin exposure and Bitcoin access.
Right.
Go on.
No. I just wanted to take a look at some of the shares of a couple of these digital asset treasury companies, because if you looked at them over the last couple of months, they've been declining sharply. And so I'm curious, I know that these are moves that can be ephemeral, but I wonder how this impacts your DAT's ability to fundraise, your digital asset treasury company's ability. Does this kind of price action close the door on any kinds of specific fundraising that would otherwise be open?
Yeah, well, I think what we're watching happen right now is the market's getting more sophisticated. We had such a historic run for these treasury companies over the past 18 months. And I think the past 6 months, we really saw a deluge of new companies trying to replicate the strategy that had no, track record and performance of actually executing this. And, also we're agreeing to terms in some of these transactions that were, not ideal for investors. And so you really have to go beyond the headline. How much capital is in the headline number? You really got to get into the details. And the market's starting to figure that out. So I think really we're watching investors get more sophisticated. I think companies that have a sound strategy are able to generate growth are going to continue to be very successful running the strategy. And companies that don't really have a plan, can't execute, are losing money, they're going to have a difficult time. Bitcoin doesn't magically make your company better. You still have to execute the strategy. You still have to perform for investors.
And the normal structures of finance still apply. So I wonder how you see debt. MicroStrategy has combined convertible debt with other assets in order to make more purchases. Do you back debt with, do you pledge Bitcoin to back debt at a DAT level? And what happens then if the underlying asset falls in value?
Yeah, so we're seeing all sorts of financial instruments be created to underwrite these. Our specific focus is on Bitcoin treasury companies, and I think they have a different value proposition than, let's say, your digital asset treasury company that's acquiring random token XYZ. I do think there's a lot of risk embedded in those structures. Our focus, like I said, is on Bitcoin. In terms of debt across the ecosystem, broadly speaking, the market has been very conservative about this. If you look at Michael Saylor, I think he has $8 billion of debt secured against $60 billion plus of Bitcoin. I think loan to values, if you kind of look across the industry, are sub 15%, generally speaking. But we are seeing people take on more and more risk as this play matures. And I think that's going to create opportunities for investors, for other Bitcoin treasury companies to be able to pursue accretive M&A, acquire some of their peers and competitors, and restructure those businesses.
David, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hope to have you back on Bloomberg Crypto soon. David Billy is CEO of Nakamoto. Now, coming up on crypto, the parent company of EasyJet launches an app called Easy Bitcoin to do what else? Slash fees. That's next. This is Bloomberg. Easy Group, this is the company behind the budget carrier EasyJet, is diving into digital assets with Easy Bitcoin. This is an app meant to cut costs for investors. EasyJet's founder told Bloomberg, quote, "I'm only doing it because the second Trump administration, or the Trump second election, has made it completely mainstream." So let's discuss all of this with Uphold CEO Simon McLoughlin. Uphold is a regulated trading platform powering Easy Bitcoin. So first things first, just kind of explain what Easy Bitcoin does and how it helps people cut down on fees.
Sure. So Easy Bitcoin is designed for anybody who hasn't bought Bitcoin so far, and they're wondering how to get started. And Bitcoin is the best performing asset over the past 10 years. 88% of Americans think it's a great way of building wealth over the next 10 years. And it just makes things radically simple. There's a perception that it's difficult to get into Bitcoin because most crypto apps are designed for pro traders. This thing just keeps it simple, offers great value for money, and is it's true to the EasyJet, Easy Group values.
So first of all, did you say 88%? 88% of Americans think it's key to building wealth?
Yep.
That's a massive, obviously, majority. How do you hold the Bitcoin? How do you custody that then for the user of the app?
We give people the option, so you can either go for self-custody, which we're introducing very shortly, or we can custody it for you. And we've been in the space for 10 years. We custody almost $9 billion worth of assets. So we believe in giving people the option. I mean, a key point of this app is it gives you exposure to real Bitcoin. It's not an ETF. You don't have to trade it from 9 to 4:30. It's real Bitcoin. It's portable, and if you want to hold the keys, you can.
So you go and buy a certain sliver of a Bitcoin, or if you have enough money, whole Bitcoins, and then you can either hold them with your own key, or you'll hold it for me.
That's right. We're introducing self-custody shortly. Initially, it's a custodied solution. But the key thing about this app is that EasyJet chose Uphold as the platform to build it on, because we're not an exchange. We don't rely on a single order book. We poll 32 different exchanges around the world for the best pricing and liquidity, and we pass on those improvements to customers. And a key point is also resilience. If an exchange is down, you're kind of stuck. On the whole platform, if an exchange is down, we can route trades to one of 30 other venues.
So Simon, you and I were talking a little bit earlier about how you've been in the crypto space for about 8 years now. So you've really seen the evolution and in many ways the revolution of crypto.
Yeah.
And I'm curious whether you're looking to join or support any DATSs, the digital asset treasury companies.
I think the digital asset treasury companies are fascinating. By and large, I see them as a force for stability, actually, because they're one-way buyers. There are very powerful disincentives for them to offload. And by and large, if you look at the largest players in that space, they've done it with a measure of transparency and consistency that hasn't spooked the market.
So would you buy a DAT versus just buying the underlying asset? I guess it's so easy now for you to buy Bitcoin that there's no reason.
Every single time I'd buy the real asset. If you want exposure to Bitcoin, buy a Bitcoin.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking.
I know. So what's the value proposition of going the DATS route then?
Well, it's fundamentally it's the celebrity value of the people behind it and the skill that they're adding. But I wouldn't go the ETF route. I wouldn't go the digital treasury route. I'd buy Bitcoin direct.
In terms of your business, why link it with an airline, other than the name of the airline?
It's a great question. So Uphold is an infrastructure provider to banks, brokers, and third-party companies who want to plug into blockchain technology easily and quickly. We've got IG Group, the first UK public companies who offer crypto to market in around 3 months. So, next year we're hoping to IPO, and we're going to the market with a very distinct proposition, which is this is an infrastructure platform for traditional finance to build on.
All right, Simon, thank you so much. Simon McLoughlin is CEO of Uphold. And that does it for Bloomberg Crypto this week. Matt, you're an early adopter of Bitcoin. Will you come back?
I sure wish I had more of it. I'll tell you that much. But
you spent it all.
I spent a lot of it and am left with not enough.
But you still have some sliver of it.
I still have a little bit left.
All right, well, building your wealth with Matt Miller when it comes to Bloomberg Crypto. All right, this does it for this week's of Bloomberg Crypto. Keep it here. Bloomberg Markets is up next.